Uh, wh- so you're not going to the Open. I'm probably not going either, and we're
I
both going to regret it. You know what? We won't regret the travel and the hotels and the Ubers and whatever, but we'll get
it
ticked off
it's it
about
sucks
not being
not
in that side.
yeah, it sucks not being there. We're live. I'm going to tweet the link out. Um, it sucks not being there, especially the Vegas where you can rub elbows with everybody and it's great to see everybody. But, we always go back and forth with like it is easier sometimes to watch the stuff at home. And listen, I'll be honest, when I'm in Vegas, I'm such an early bird. Like I go to bed early, I wake up early. And so when I go to Vegas for a short period of time, like 3-4 days, I wake up at like 3 a.m. Vegas time. And then by the time the wrestling's at like I think the semis are at like 9 o'clock Eastern, six
I
o'clock
go to
Pacific.
sleep at 3. I go to sleep at 3, maybe.
I know we're opposites, but
But no, I'm not going. Number one, I'm not going. Frankly, I ain't going because for two reasons. Number one, me and the old lady are taking a break, and so I'm back on the East Coast for a little bit. Who knows how that'll end up? I'm sure fellers will send me divorce jokes stat.
he's such a prick.
Well, she, we were together twice. We were married, then separated, then back together. And I think she just wants to be a 3-time Hodge winner. And so we'll probably get back together. But that's one reason I just drove across the country. Number two, and here's the real reason. I don't want to do this new venue where there's no hotel rooms and it's in an airplane hangar, and I ain't doing it. I'm not in the mood this year at this moment to do such a thing. They freaking had a perfect setup. Everybody's there. Everybody can be boys. You can go watch your wrestling. Go back to you forgot your you forgot your tape. Okay, let me go back to the room and get it. Oh, you forgot your I don't know. You want to get your casino chips? Let me go up to the room and get it. It takes 5 minutes. You want to get something to eat? It's right there. Now they're doing this thing. It's a stupid ass venue. No hotels attached. No casinos attached. They're over there. You got to get an Uber. You got to have a rental car. Whatever the case may be. I ain't doing it this year. And you know what? We never talked about the reason they're changing the venue.
Didn't
Which
somebody throw something off a roof?
No. Jeez.
All I said was, didn't somebody throw something off a roof? That's all I said. I asked the
Yeah,
question.
we should. But yeah, okay.
Wait,
Yeah.
hold on. Well, first of all, is that whole story the issue? Is that the reason?
Yes.
Okay.
I was gonna say somebody did something bad at the former site. But yeah,
Well, we didn't give anything away. We didn't tattletale anybody. And really, as people are joining, I don't know how many people are going to watch this live. You wanted to do it live. We're
I
recording.
want to do it live. I want to do everything live.
We're recording this Saturday night at 5:00, and I prefaced this before we started recording.
Where do I see the comments?
On YouTube? I just tweeted the link. It's Holy Week right now. Good Friday yesterday, Easter Sunday, Resurrection Sunday, and here Willie wants. As long as we've had show notes, this is the most scathing I have ever seen them. I almost want to censor and start deleting words and just the number of different tangents from, I can't remember if it was tree huggers or nut huggers or whatever you were calling people, and then just, talking about how fragile people are. So
They are so fragile.
let's be a little bit. I know you want to wreck people. And by the way, I have no dog in this fight. We were talking about this too, is that, shout out Taylor in the chat. I can only be called a mouth breather on the lives. Shout out Taylor in the chat. This is one of those things that you're on tilt because of the reaction. And normally I'll go on tilt over more so like my belief in something or like my opinion. This is a pure Willie's on tilt because of the reaction, which is
I'm
always,
on tilt because people are on tilt.
correct.
Right?
This is not where you're so mad necessarily because of your opinion. There are times throughout the year that you see things happening in wrestling and you don't really care one way or another, but the reaction gets you. It puts you on tilt.
Yeah, here's the thing. Let's get down to brass tacks. Let's get down to the topic. PSU fans are insane, and they're saying that the event. And okay, let me back up.
All fans are insane. All fans are insane.
Up before, because you have to be precise with them, or they get you on these little semantic details. There is a vocal group of Penn State fans. Not all Penn State fans. There is a vocal group chirping on message boards and social media that national duels in this situation this year will lack legitimacy, will not be important. I'm watching football that day. It's not a big deal. You're a liar and you're an idiot. And that's how fragile you are. You are so fragile that your beloved Nittany Lions aren't going, that you have to resort to stupid takes. Okay? Because there's nothing illegitimate about it. There's nothing not exciting about it. And if you want to watch football, then you're a casual. And you really don't like wrestling. You like a university. All right? Mm-hmm. So go F yourself. You're an idiot. Okay? On the other side, in this corner, we have a bunch of Oklahoma State idiots.
Do you want, well, real quick, because we kind of dove all in, just to give a little bit of color or context, if there is, as Willie calls, a casual listening, what happened this week to set the stage is that the top 12 teams who finished at NCAAs were invited to this event. 11 of 12 accepted. Penn State did not accept. Once Penn State did not accept, that's when it got contentious between fan bases, and that's when Willie went on tilt.
Right, so it was long expected. There was chatter about national duels, and David Taylor set it up rather beautifully. And to his credit, Christian Pyle set it up pretty wisely too, because he knew it was coming down the chute, and he kind of played dumb but he set it up. Christian did, and David set it up pretty well. David started floating the idea of a national duels. It was asked to Cale Sanderson. He said, not everybody has to be at an event for it to be a great event, which I'm going to bring up in a second. And then a couple days later, the powers that be announced that they were indeed doing the national duels with a scheduled payout, 1 through 16. You get X amount of dollars to show. You get $200,000 to win the event. And at that point, everybody was waiting for details, but they fully expected that Cale and Penn State wouldn't go. And the deadline for everybody to accept their nomination, to accept their bid, was the other day. And it came and went without Penn State accepting the invitation. And to which then everybody proceeded to lose their minds. The Oklahoma State fans are losing their minds because Cale's not doing what's best for the sport. There's another faction of delirious Oklahoma State fans saying, and this started with that idiot from the Dynasty Defined podcast. He started saying this like 2 years ago. Penn State doesn't wrestle a good schedule. Which is totally stupid, and I'll give you examples of that in 2 minutes. So there's Penn State's not doing what's good for the sport. There's also Penn State's ducking a good schedule, and then you have the fans of other schools that just want to hate Penn State, and they're on the Cale's not doing what's right for wrestling train. They're on that train as well. So it appears that there is a very small percentage of wrestling fans that have a freaking clue, that can be unbiased, that can look at it through a rational lens and say that the national duels are awesome. They're going to be awesome. They could be the next big thing. They could be a giant spectacle for wrestling. They could give us a second or third marquee date, or fourth. If you consider CKLV sort of a marquee weekend, if you consider national duels that's going to happen a marquee weekend, conference weekend, and NCAAs. All right, there was a time when we had other weekends that were just huge, Scuffle and Midlands, but they went away. All right, they are great tournaments, and therein lies the hypocrisy that you idiot wrestling fans right now are saying that it's not going to be as a big deal. It's a big deal. Penn State's not going to be there. All right. I watched last night a play-in game in basketball to be the 8th seed. I watched it. There were 18,000 fans there. It was completely sold out. It was on TNT. There's a game on right now, first round playoff, ESPN.
WrestleMania, hour and a half.
It's a sold out arena. It's on a major network. It was a play-in game. And you're telling me that that's not a big deal? So you're telling me that Penn State not wrestling there, one team not wrestling there, makes it not a big deal, makes it invalid, makes it sub? You don't know what you're talking about. You can't watch the National Collegiate Duels. You can't watch Midlands. You can't watch CKLV and get excited about it and then come and tell me that this event is going to be illegitimate because one team isn't there. So you're telling me that any sporting event that doesn't have the number one team or the number one athlete is invalid? What are you talking about? I guarantee you somebody watched the Mets today. What about number one? Does that have to do with anything? You're just lying to yourself. Americans today love to be offended. They love to get incensed about absolutely nothing. You're being a hypocrite. You're being a total hypocrite, Penn State fans, because Penn State had a schedule last year. National Collegiate Duels. We're going to National Collegiate Duels. We're going to National Collegiate Duels. Was that illegitimate? Did you watch football on that day? Because it's not a good event. You're lying to yourself.
Well, let's clarify, too, that I think it's a subsection of fans that are very loud on Twitter. That, to me, seems to be, I feel like, let's pump the brakes with all of Penn State fans getting a bad rap here. There's a subset of fans that, look, I'm a Penn State fan. I don't care if Penn State goes to this or not. I think it's going to be a great event.
Rocky supports the brain. Rocky supports the brain. Rocky's on my side with you. Okay?
Yeah, and well, all I'm saying is, like, I do think, just like there's a lot of Penn State fans that listen to this podcast, and I know a good amount of them, that think that it's going to be a great event whether Penn State's there or not. I do agree that there's your coach said.
Correct. In the first interview, the first time the question was asked, he said there can be great events without everybody there. Now there's a great event without anybody there, and your coach that walks on water said so, and you're denying him that.
Well, time out. So let me finish my train of thought. I know you're incensed here.
Why are you trying to insulate them from criticism? You're saying it's a vocal
minority.
No, I'm
not. I'm saying shut up with saying it's every single Penn State fan. You're grouping together all Penn State fans.
I literally opened the show by saying it's a section of them.
I know. Let me finish with what I'm saying. You're like going off on everybody. Relax for a second.
Well, there's more to come.
I know. I got the show notes. I can tell. Now I forgot what I was even going to say. I think that the people that I see, there's some, every fan base, whether it's Penn State, Oklahoma State, there's a lot of fans that no matter what happens are going to just take whatever angle they can to attack another fan base. And I think you're seeing that. I think you're seeing that with Penn State fans, with Oklahoma State fans, with everybody. I do think that for my just kind of outside perspective, I think part of the contention is not just the event, it's crowning a national duels champion. And for some reason, people are getting hung up on that. And that seems to be where I'm seeing people get over defensive. That's kind of where I'm seeing and because I agree with you, like, it's just a standalone event, fine. That's where I think some people are saying, like, well,
they're idiots, though. They're idiots. They too are idiots. I'll tell you what. I'm doing recruiting class rankings, and I was watching film of. I wanted to go back and watch some tape of Sergio Vega, and I went back and watched a tape of Sergio Vega, and I watched a tournament in at the U.S. Open Juniors against Bo Bassett. I watched the final Super 32, Dalton Perry. I watched Dapper Dan against Sergio Vega against Tahir Parkins. So I'm scouting a little bit, reviewing some stuff. Super 32, 300 people around the mat. Vegas, crowd around the mat, right? Super 32 is monster tournament. Everybody talks about it. Fargo, monster tournament. They are what matters. They are great indicators of future success. They are the cat's meow. You know what a lot of those brackets don't have? The number one guy in the country. When people go to Super 32 and number 2 and number 5 are in the finals, nobody says, well, this is meaningless. This is 2 and 5. One's not even here. This doesn't mean anything. I mean, are you a blooming idiot? And to go back and say now, if the number 1 isn't there, it makes it all invalid. No, it doesn't. You know what it makes? It makes for a great wrestling event that everybody's going to watch. It doesn't make for a national team champion. Right. It makes for the National Duels Invitational champion. Mm-hmm. So if you're hung up on semantics, I mean, go read a book. Go read like a lesson on logic, because you're being hypocritical. You're going counterintuitive to your own standards. You're saying stuff that don't even fit your own standards because you're being tribal within one faction, either Penn State or the country. And that's it. And that's what that is my criticism. That's why Penn State fans right now are being irrational and really silly and hypocritical. You can have a great event that doesn't mean it's a national title. I don't know what is in these people's brains that say, well, it's not going to be for the national title. No shit. It's not for the national title. So we go bonkers every year for CKLV. It's not for the national title. All right? Texas and Oklahoma playing football every year. You can't find a ticket. It's not for the national title. Sometimes they're not. Neither one's ranked top 10. So I don't get any of this nonsense where it's not meaningful. All right. So that's that. That's that side. Penn State fans that are being idiots. All right. Now let's talk about the country. The country that is being idiots, and the country saying Cale and Penn State should do this for the best of the sport. Cale and Penn State don't wrestle a tough schedule. Cale and Penn State, they should do this. They're scared, or they're bitter, or they're turning this into a personal stuff. Dude, shut up. Where were you? First of all, Oklahoma State fans that want to criticize schedule and criticize do what's best for the sport. I don't want to drop F-bombs. I want to drop F-bombs.
Thank you. I think Freddie's listening. Thank you.
I don't want to drop F-bombs on Christmas weekend. Where?
It's the other side of Christmas weekend. Christmas Eve's born, Eve roast.
Easter weekend. Where the hell was your team in the first semester for the last decade? You want to poo-poo on Kale for not coming to a dual tournament? Where the hell were you for collegiate duels the last 7 years? Before last year when David Taylor got there, where the hell were you for Cliff Keen? Take that nonsense and stick it up your ass because you're being totally hypocritical. Do what's best for the sport. Scared about...
Be honest, is that a coach calling you?
It's Snyder. I mean, what are you talking about? And you want to come at me with, well, yeah, you got to do what's best for the sport. I mean, no. Did John Smith feel it was best for the sport to go to collegiate duels? No. And don't come at me. Do not come at me with, well, they're offering money now. Collegiate duels paid money. I don't know if it's the same, but I think this one's more. But it was significant money. Don't come at me with that. Again, hypocritical. Being totally hypocritical. So both sides of the coin are off the rocker. Can't you just accept what is rational and that it's going to be a really good tournament? It could be the next big thing. It probably is the next big thing. And that it's okay if somebody doesn't come. That's it. That's the way you should be thinking. Anything else is insanity. Oh, by the way, these people forget history. They forget about national duels when there were national duels. Do you remember? Do any of you idiots remember that national duels did happen for years? And teams sat out all the time? What is different? What is different about this national duels compared to national duels 15 years ago when people sat out? Where was the outrage then? You idiots do realize that happened before, right? You idiots do realize that national duels did happen and tons of teams said, nah, pass. We ain't doing it this year. You understand that happened for a decade, right? Or no? Or you just a Johnny-come-lately that now wants to put your 2 cents in and think that is the right response? Where were you then? Where was everybody's coach do what's best for the sport back then? The only difference now is there's more money involved, or there is money involved. You don't know your history. Where's everybody when they said, well, do what's good for the sport and go to Midlands? Well, do what's best for the sport and go to school. Oh, nobody does a holiday tournaments anymore. Or do you care what's best for the sport there? Is there a best for the sport aspect there? Iowa leaves Midlands, starts their own tournament. Now there's 3. Now there's 3 really watered down tournaments. Is any of that what's best for the sport? Actually, credit Hawkeye fans. I'm going to credit Hawkeye fans. Because you got East Coasters that don't like Penn State chirping, oh, Penn State should do this, Penn State should do that. You got Oklahoma State fans chirping, complete hypocrisy to the recent history and recent decisions of their own freaking program. You know who's not chirping? Iowa. Iowa fans. They get it. They've seen this stuff before. The rest of you are Johnny-come-latelys that are talking out your ass.
to be fair,
You are.
oh, I don't even want to go down this path.
And here's another thing, you bloomin' idiots. Here's another thing, you bloomin' idiots, that nobody wants to address. You can't peak all year long. You can't peak all year long. Riddle me this. Wrestling fan geniuses. What program is probably going to have the most guys wrestling in high stakes events in September, in August, and October? What program, guys? Can I get an answer?
Penn
What
State.
program is going to have the most wrestling at world championships?
Penn State.
By far. Penn State's going to have by far the most, with major stakes on the line in September and October. Well, you're asking Penn State to change their methodology for your irrational justification to call a title a title. I mean, that's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. Junior Worlds, August 24th. Senior Worlds, September 21st. U23 Worlds, October 26th. You don't think Penn State's going to have a significant portion of that team on, wrestling overseas? I mean, wake up. Wake up. Now, am I saying, well, other teams aren't going to have guys on the team? No, I'm not saying that. Well, if Iowa has a guy on the U23 team and they can make national duels, why can't Penn State? Penn State can. They can. I'm not saying that Penn State cannot go to this tournament. I'm not saying that Penn State shouldn't go to this tournament. I would love to see Penn State there. What I'm saying is there is some real evidence, there is some real rationale why they might not want to. You rip off decades of titles, and then you say, well, throw a monkey wrench in that, Kale. Throw a monkey wrench in that.
That's what I don't get, is people expecting that, like, Kale and the Penn State staff have developed such a great system that wins, that brings attention to wrestling, that has created one of the biggest dynasties in college sports. And all of a sudden, David Taylor and Oklahoma State come up with this event, and just because Kale doesn't jump on board right away, there's all these narratives. And I'm like, this makes no sense to me.
Well, I mean, look at what Kale's been doing. Look at Penn State's typical schedule. And then you're going to drop this event in here and expect a team that's had the most success to change up their formula? I mean, when I talked to Kale, when National Collegiate Duels with Pat Popolizio, I was on the ground floor with that, right? I was talking to the coaches. I was talking to Frank, and the rest of the coaches, helping to get it together. And the number one thing about it was the date. The number one thing about it was the date. It's where Kale wanted to be for a test, right? He doesn't want it to be in November. And I'm not here defending Kale and saying that Penn State shouldn't be here. I want Penn State to be here. I would like Penn State to be here. I'm not saying they can't. What I'm saying is, you are surprised? You are going to insult them and think down upon them because they don't change their winning formula to meet your desires? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Did anybody else, like, did anybody else get mad that teams didn't go to collegiate duels? No, that's fine. You don't want to come, don't come. It doesn't fit your method. But when Penn State don't go, then you're mad.
Well,
you're a hypocrite.
Let me ask you this. How much of the commentary, you mentioned that you give Iowa fans a lot of credit right now, And I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think they're being very level-headed.
They
How
ain't
much?
crying.
How much of this do you think is that the Oklahoma State fans seem to have, call it a resurgence in hopium, right? David Taylor, the success this year, Wyatt and Hamidi, there's a lot of hopium with Oklahoma State fans where Iowa fans are kind of like, whatever happens, happens. I'm excited for the event. Oklahoma State fans, there's a resurgence in hope for the program. How much of that do you think is factoring into, Bashada said it in the chat, and he said it a million times in our group chat, that the duel everybody wants to see next year is Oklahoma State, Penn State. That's the duel everyone wants to see. How much of all of that is the rationale behind people and their opinions, their takes, their whatever, all because, let's call a spade, people want Penn State versus Oklahoma State?
I think it's less to do what people want in Penn State, Oklahoma State. I mean, Penn State and Oklahoma State wrestled a couple times as a non-conference thing. And I understand that it's different now because David's there and there's the fan base is sort of reinvigorated. But here's what I think it is. I mean, I don't know. I guess I didn't think about that angle too hard because when I walk around and I think about it, I just assume that the vitriol from the Okie State fan base is not necessarily because they want to crack at Penn State. I mean, I don't think anybody.
I think a lot of it is. For example, if we let's just say we knew January 15th, 2026, it's Penn State versus Oklahoma State. I think the rhetoric around Penn State going to the national duels completely dies down because Oklahoma State fans will know, hey, we have national duels on the schedule and we have Penn State on the schedule. I think a lot of the rhetoric would die down because I think people are assuming, hey, we're probably not going to get Penn State, Oklahoma State on a schedule next year. So if we can get at national duels, we'll finally see the duel we've been wanting for the past year.
Yeah, I think it's totally acceptable for Oklahoma State fans to say, we want to duel Penn State. We want it. We want to duel Penn State. It's going to be great. It's totally acceptable. I mean, sure. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, there's never anything wrong with wanting your team to face somebody else. There is something wrong with calling somebody out because they don't accept it. And for 1 year, right? It doesn't mean Penn State won't schedule Oklahoma State down the road. It doesn't mean that Penn State and Oklahoma State won't see each other somewhere sometime. So you can't blame anybody. You can want it. It doesn't mean you should, I don't know, kick the wall that it doesn't happen. I mean, there's lots of matchups that we want every year that doesn't happen. I mean, I think 1 year Iowa and Penn State didn't even wrestle. They're in the same conference. All right? But here's what I assume. This is what I assumed it was. Not necessarily that Oklahoma State fans want a Penn State matchup, and they do. But let's be honest. This is an Oklahoma State event. This is an Oklahoma State event, guys. Which might be one reason why Kale ain't about it either. I mean, they're putting it in their backyard.
Bashada had a very good point about Oklahoma State hosting it, which I'm going to bring up in a couple of minutes.
It's in their backyard. It's founded by David Taylor. It's paid for by Oklahoma State's. It's bankrolled by Oklahoma State's guy. All right? And so it's an Oklahoma State event. So their fan base wants an Oklahoma State event. They just had this big-ass concert series that benefited Oklahoma State. All right? They want events that benefit Oklahoma State. Now, everybody's going to this event. Now, I ain't saying it necessarily benefits Oklahoma State, but it's an Oklahoma State event. Make no bones about that. And you know what? You could call collegiate duels if you wanted to. You could call collegiate duels a Penn State event because Kale, I mean, I'm not saying that Kale ran it and bankrolled and his people bankrolled it, but that was an event put together largely with Kale's wants and needs and everything. And y'all didn't go to it. Y'all didn't go to it. Oklahoma State never went once. Other teams, yeah, we'll go, but we ain't wrestling this team, and we ain't gonna be in that pool, and we got. Well, oh, you know what? We don't want to be in this pool because we wrestled them in February, and with all these stipulations and jumping through hoops.
By the way, the red nose in the chat just said it perfectly, which I thought we said earlier, but Kale did not participate in the first collegiate duels. It was the next year that he participated. Just because an event pops up doesn't mean any school is going to happen to join in.
Yeah, I just think it's hypocritical. It's hypocritical to say, why didn't you participate? Why didn't y'all participate at CKLV? Why don't y'all participate at Midlands? Now we're at the stage where we're telling coaches they have to do it. Listen, Iowa doesn't wrestle UNI. I think it's stupid. They were both top 10 last year. They're right down the street. Duel. Iowa wouldn't wrestle Virginia Tech. I mean, I'll be honest. The NWCA, and that's when, again, you guys don't know your history. You don't know your history. Because when they had those bowls, I guess I need to go back and explain it. They had national duels for years. Then some teams would sit out because we ain't going through that. We ain't. And again, 100%, I 100% agree with them. I wouldn't have done it either. You can't have national duels. You can't have national duels where you're battling 4 top 10 teams, 4 top 25 teams. Your kids are going through the ringer, wrestling 4 All-Americans in February, and then have conferences, and then have NCAAs. That ain't a recipe for success. That ain't a recipe to be peaked. Okay? I wouldn't have done it. So national duels went from a lot of participation to mid-participation to little participation to let's just go to these bowls. Let's wrestle a part of the season, then we'll take the rankings and we'll match up 1s versus 2s. All right? So they did that. That was the year. They had it for 2 years. That was the year that Suriano rolled his ankle at Gallagher Iba. All right? I'm telling you right now that the organizers who did that were the NWCA. And the NWCA had a panel full of coaches. Only like 2 or 3. One of them was Tom Ryan. I was involved with the process. I knew what the matchups were going to be. Me and Christian Piles knew exactly what the matchups were supposed to be. The coaches, a lot of them, knew what the matchups were supposed to be. They were told. They were told what the matchups were. Then they make changes at the last minute. This team's wrestling here. I was wrestling here. Iowa refused to wrestle Virginia Tech. And we called them on it. And they straight up lied to my face. They straight up lied to me. The NWCA and Tom Ryan lied to me. Because they told me one thing on one day, 2 days later it changed. I said, that ain't right. You told me this. I'm pretty sure Kale tweeted about it.
He did tweet about it.
Okay? They couldn't get on the same page. That's why people are not all the way in on things in wrestling. Because there's infighting and matchup making, and I'll wrestle this guy and I won't wrestle that guy, and I'm going to sit this guy, and I'm not wrestling UNI, and I'm not wrestling Virginia Tech, and I'm not wrestling in this pool. I'll go to collegiate duels, but I ain't wrestling in this pool because we duel them 3 months later. It's the coaches pulling the strings at all time and not an unbiased group. And I'm telling you right now, I will be shocked if there isn't coaches trying to manipulate the seeds based on who they want to wrestle. and why they should do this and why they should be that.
I was actually going to bring that up because I was talking to Bashad earlier, and he said, hey, Nebraska's the clear 1 seed for this tournament, right? If it's based on NCAA tournament finishes, Nebraska obviously has to be the 1 seed, correct? And I said, you make a very good point. If you're going off of last year's results and giving balls for the lottery based on results, how do you seed this event?
How do I? I'm on the seeding committee, but listen, I've been on lots of seeding committees. I've been on lots of tournament committees. And sometimes they let you do what you should do, and other times they say, you're on the committee, but we got this.
And
so I don't know.
And the reason he was saying it is, again, if you're going based on past results, and Nebraska's the 1, it honestly makes for a really interesting tournament with Oklahoma State, Iowa, potentially 2-3 semi.
I mean, a lot of things are not ideal with year 1. And that's the third faction. You got the Penn State haters that are putting all this blame on Kale. You got the Penn State idiots that try to delegitimize the event. And then you got another faction that are saying correctly, in a lot of cases, the selection is not what it should be. And I agree with that 100%. I agree that the selection of this is not what it should be. And I'm on the board. They should take the time, if you want to get the field right. I didn't even come up with. I have in spreadsheets, and this is what they told me they wanted, and I did it. This is why they ostensibly put me on this. I came up with every projected lineup for every team that's auto-qualified. I came up with I did about 10 of the lineups of teams that were going to be at-large contenders. Okay? But they didn't want to go with those. They said, year 1, there's too much. The window's too short. We're going with a lottery system. All right. But if you really want to get it right, there has to be a little give and take. To me, there's 16 teams in this tournament. There has to be a little earned. And there has to be a little deserved. There has to be a little feather in your cap for what you did and some common sense into what is going to be.
I've got a guest, Willie.
What did she say? She says, what's Kamala say?
Willie, we've got a guest who wants to speak. We've got our first live call-in guest.
Donnie B? Donnie B in his bed.
We have to address this seating thing quickly. And this is my point of this whole thing. A lot of things you say I completely agree with, including this is an Oklahoma State event. They're the ones who put the money up. They had the idea to do it. I think it's going to be a great event no matter what. I personally believe that if you schedule some great duels in January, I'm not really sure that this event means too much because a lot of the duels I don't think are really they're going to be decided before we even, go to the event for that weekend. That being said, and this is what's been going on Twitter at least for a while.
We lost him.
He accidentally muted himself.
You have the Rutgers contingency who's screaming that despite a 36th place finish at NCAA's, they should be in the event. And the response from at least the Oklahoma State crazy fan base is you finished 36th, you don't belong in the event. And Rutgers says, well, we had a top 15 dual season. We were ranked 11th or 12th after the dual season. We should be involved. It's a dual meet tournament. Goodell's come straight out on Twitter and said it. Pretty logical. I've responded, saying basically like, look, it's year 1. this is how they decided to do it in year one. They decided to base it off 2024. Things will get better. You're going to test it out. You and I had been talking on, in our group chat about, you got to really wait because, a lot of portal things go on. But then you make the point of, well, it's an event where people have to fly into. You have to deal with athletic directors and administration and get everything lined up.
Yeah.
Now, that said, at least be consistent. If you're going to say teams can only be invited based on 2024 tournament results, then seed the damn thing exactly that way. And if you don't seed it that way,
Right.
then it's
So
then
that's
completely inconsistent. And I suspect what we're going to end up seeing is some argument as to why Oklahoma State or Iowa should be one, and you end up with either Nebraska and Oklahoma State down low. I think it's crazy. If you're going to say we're basing this off 2024 tourney, Nebraska is one, and what you end up with is Oklahoma State, Iowa in the semis against each other, as opposed to the likely final.
I have an angle on that too. I don't have an angle. I was thinking through this. So first of all, they have to define. They came up with the entries based on tournament points, right? How do you get into the tournament? You get into the tournament based on 2025, March of 2025 tournament points. Okay, that's how you get in. If that's how you get in, then that's how you should seed them. Is that how we're seeding them? Because
1,000%.
If you're going to seed them based on that, then it's real simple. Nebraska is 1, Oklahoma State and Iowa are 2, 3. Okay,
that's it.
End of story. Now, if they switch that up and it becomes subjective, and everybody says, Willie, you're a Nebraska homer. You're a Nebraska homer.
Which you are.
No.
I've seen the cowboy
I'm
not
even a Nebraska homer. I like that Nebraska does well because I'm close with the staff, right? But I'm a realist. When I did Crystal Ball, I didn't have Antrell a champ. When I had guys lose it. I didn't have Van D on the podium. Okay, I'm a realist. I had Nebraska behind Lehigh in the standings. I can separate relationships with reality.
But you're consistent.
Okay? No, but because it's fair.
I agree.
It's fair. Okay? So don't give me that Nebraska homer stuff. If you're basing the seeds,
we're going to say that anyway. But
if you're basing the seeds on tournament points, then it's real easy. It's prescripted. It is what it is.
Yes.
If you're saying let's seed subjectively, then we're talking about something different. Here's where it gets tricky to me. ESPN got the finals.
Mm-hmm.
Flo has the semis. You know damn well what Flo wants, right?
1,000%.
Flo wants Iowa Okie State bad.
Correct.
Okay. So, yeah.
Now, which we're going to see again later in the year anyway. By the way, I guess if that stays consistent with their scheduling. But Willie, look, I agree, and I think that my point is, if you're going to pick by a rigid formula and hold a team like Rutgers out, right? And yes, they finished 36. Bash is going to fall over when I say this, but yes, they finished 36 at NCAA's. But from a dual meet perspective, they beat Illinois head to head. Maryland also has a role in this ball thing or whatever the hell they're doing, right? So they beat Maryland head to head.
I don't want to hear about that. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear about Rutgers.
But I don't want to hear about Rutgers. I'm using it as an example. If you're going to seed subjectively, then don't say we have this rigid formula. It's where you finished in 2025 at the tournament. Oh, by the way, since Oklahoma State and Iowa are going to be in the semifinals. By the way, since Oklahoma State is hosting the tournament, well, they have to be number one. Don't pull that bullshit.
Here's the problem. Here, I'll tell you what the first problem. And let me say, Doug Schwab just texted me. Obviously, Doug Schwab is watching, and he said the reason the entries have to be in early, which I alluded to on Twitter or something like that, or a previous show. The reason that you have to set the field early is because the coaches got to know their schedule, so that they can build the rest of their schedule, right? If they're not in, then they're going to use that date for something else. To which
that makes total sense.
Which I understand.
Yeah.
But to which I say, if you have high aspirations, and if you have aspirations to get into this tournament, then you leave that date open. And if you don't get in, you send your kids to an open tournament. You schedule a duel with somebody else that didn't get in. All right? You can make a pivot for one weekend. Leave it open. The bottom line is, if you want to do this right, you have to do certain things. And one of them is evaluation. Now, this is where it gets tricky. Because wrestling, in no facet of wrestling, from youth to freaking Olympics, they allow nobody any freaking say other than the coaches. If the coaches want, well, we don't want to do this. Well, we don't want to have subjective evaluations, because what if you don't put in Iowa State? Then Iowa State gets angry and they might not come next year. Boo. Do what's right. Do the evaluations. If Arizona State took third at NCAAs and they had 5 All-Americans and 4 of them graduate, you ain't in. You're not in. You don't have the horses. I'm sorry. That's the right way to do things, but they'll never do it because they all go to the same country club.
But going back
I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying that at the end of the day, if you're going to take a rigid approach to membership in this little 12-team club that is this event, then you should seed it accordingly. And if it's going to be, no, we have rigid things for membership, but now that we're not getting the real matchups that we think we're going to get as the final, we're going to start flipping things around and cause subjectivity. That's bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
That's
we don't know that they're doing that.
Okay?
We don't know that they're doing that
No,
yet.
no. I'm saying if that occurs, if not, this is really easy. Nebraska's the 1 seed. Oklahoma State's 2 and Iowa's 3. There you go. Do we really think anybody else is going to actually win this event? I mean, Christ, but both Iowa and Oklahoma State just plopped down who knows how much money to reload their lineups.
Well, right, when it comes to Iowa, I mean, objectively speaking, if you threw the lineups at me, I would have Iowa ahead of Nebraska.
I think I'd have Iowa 1.
So do you think it's basically that's what I was going to say, Willie? So do you think, because after Don and I were talking about this earlier, where my thought was going is, okay, you know what? They're going to use this for entry, and now come October when they seed this thing, they're going to look at submit your lineups, and we're going to seed based on lineups. And that's where I could see them moving Nebraska accordingly.
Yeah.
Now, if they do
that, then why did some teams even get in?
Why I think that's bullshit. I do think that's bullshit. That being said, Bash, I hope they do that. Because the duel that I want to see from this event, I want to see Nebraska and Oklahoma State. Because it's a duel we don't see during the year. We're going to see Nebraska, Iowa, I think, if the schedule is the same. We're going to see Iowa and Oklahoma State. We're not going to see Oklahoma State, Nebraska. Yeah. And whatever happens, well, you know what, that's a duel I want to see.
Maybe that is the fairest thing, though. Even though it's contradictory, even though it's contradictory to how you get in, maybe the fairest thing is you get in by 2025 results, but you get seeded by 2026 lineups.
6 lineups? It's interesting.
I mean, it's contradictory, but it might make the most sense. Therefore, because if you are, let's say, Little Rock, and you had 3 All-Americans and 2 of them transferred, and that's how you got in. Okay. Maybe you don't get seated upon that because those guys ain't there no more. What you got seated dead last. You have to wrestle Iowa first. Maybe that's the right thing to do because you get in based on what you were, and you get seated upon what you are. Now that doesn't really that doesn't make Iowa State feel good and warm inside because what they are right now is much better than Little Rock. right? Because
Right.
Iowa State is going to be loaded. Iowa State's going to be loaded and not in. Lehigh is going to be loaded and praying. And those two teams are absolutely going to be two of the best 16 dual meet teams in the country next year. And neither of them one's not in and one might not be in.
Look, I like the idea what you said earlier. It's just at the end of the day, they should have just consulted with you before they started making these rules here. And I don't know if Schwab is still texting me, but I'd be interested to know what's the last day that you can submit on your schedule, even if you leave this weekend open. Because if it's like May 1st, right now, if you did it, what would your 12 teams be? It wouldn't be the 12 that are in.
Their plan. That was initially their plan because they asked me to help with team selection, and I came up with every roster, every lineup. Now, obviously, things are going to change, right? I would not have had Cody Chittum in for Ohio State 3 weeks ago, or the day after NCAAs, right? But now he's there. Okay, so that's one piece that changed, right? So not everything would be 100% accurate.
You wouldn't have the first, 4 weeks for Iowa? Well, 3 of the first 4 weeks of Iowa wouldn't be the same either.
I think initially that was their intention.
The portal throws such a wrench into it. Even like Iowa State, like guys like Rocky Elam. You know, there's so many nowadays, like Iowa, Oklahoma State, half their lineups are going to be transfers next year. It's very hard to predict that.
I hate the portal and hate the transfer, but I love it for this. It keeps it super exciting.
What value do you give? Let's say, I don't know. I was going to say Marcus Blaze, but Penn State's not there. So let's say D. Lockett, right? D. Lockett's 65 for OK State. How do you evaluate that? How many points does that? How much power is he? He's a guy that never wrestled a college match in his life, right? So there are some curveballs there as well.
You give points based on big board ranking.
Maybe better in year 2 than year 1, but again, just my view is I think you got to have some. I think if you're gonna stick to this script, which is no, we don't care what the lineups look like, we don't care about anything. It's all about 2025. Then you should be consistent in how you seed it. Even though I do want to see Nebraska and Oklahoma State in the same side of the bracket, because it's a match I want to see. I think it's a duel that you're not going to see during the year, and I think that's the point of this. In the chat, talking to some of these people, and it's like, well, what duels do you really want to see at this event? People are like, I want to see every duel. Well, okay, what do you really want to see? Do you want to see, Little Rock and Oklahoma State? It's
well, I tell you what,
I want to see what, these
though,
really good matchups.
You seed CKLV, and who should be the 1 seed? Antrell Taylor or Joey Blaze? Who should be the 2 seed? Who should be the 3 seed? Okay, and they come to a resolution, and Antrell Taylor gets the 1, and the other school is like, dang it, that's stupid. I don't agree with that. Joey Blaze should be the 1. All right. But they say, whatever. You have to wrestle anybody that comes. You have to wrestle everybody, right? And they go on and they wrestle a tournament. That's how an individual bracket's drawn, right?
Sure.
It ain't going to be so nice now. Not when there's money involved. Not when there's money involved. You think Nebraska, Oklahoma State, and Iowa are going to say, well, you have to wrestle everybody in front of you? Nope. No, I make the finals. I make the finals. I get an extra 50,000. Look, this ain't gonna. They ain't gonna go quietly.
That's exactly right. That's why thinking this through. Bogle had a funny comment on Twitter that I won't repeat, but at the end of the day, it's funny. It's like thinking this thing through. It's like, yes, when there is money involved, taking very hardline positions on, well, this team shouldn't be in because they finished X at NCAAs, and then changing that up, you're going to have people pissed off about it.
Mm-hmm.
My view, stay consistent. Then at least you say, hey, listen, we've set the rules for year 1. It was based on 2025. Portal, things changed. And I said this on Twitter. I'm sure it's going to be better as time goes on. You don't really know what the mistakes are until you make them. This could be a lights-out event, regardless of whether Penn State's there or not. That's irrelevant.
It's going to be a lights-out event.
It's going to be tremendous.
We're talking about,
and it will only get better as the
how
years
the
go
sausage is made. We're talking about how the sausage is made, but the product's going to be awesome.
It is, no doubt about it.
We're nitpicking, and there's probably people that are running the event that are probably mad that I'm saying some of the things I'm saying. but we're talking about the details and the tedium and getting it right. And I do believe I do believe every year will be, because these are wrestling people. Like Matt Serber is a wrestling lifer. That guy gets it right, and he will get it right. They will get it right. I promise you that. But it'll take a couple iterations, right? And all I'm talking about, I'm not poo pooing on the way they're doing things. I'm just saying going forward, this is how I think it should be done, and I do think that they will do that going forward.
Well, I'm on the Husker train this year. They should be the 1 seed based on the criteria as it's been laid out. As a Jersey guy, I think they should be the 1 seed based on the way it's laid out. Now, with you on the committee, I think that's a good thing. And I say that just not because we're on this podcast and because we're friends, but I really think, you live and breathe it, and we'll sit there and look at every single lineup and make legit, good, logical arguments as to why things should be seeded a certain way. I think that's important. But I also, in year one, I think that the event loses a little bit of credibility if you're going to take these hardline positions about, well, no, we're doing it this certain way, and then all of a sudden you don't like that way for another aspect of it. I think that's an issue, especially when there's money on the line.
Dude, I've seeded so many tournaments, and this is how it goes every time. People complain. The first whistle goes off, everybody forgets about it.
Yeah.
Everybody forgets about it, and they just go and wrestle. It's going to be an amazing event. I think it's going to be well attended. I think, and just like collegiate duels, I was involved in collegiate duels from its inception, and there was teams that were tentative. I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know when. I started when Flow National started, when Who's Number One started. There's always a wait and see. I don't know how this goes, and I think it's going to go awesome, and I think everybody's going to want it. Most teams already are dying to get in, and I think it's just going to be. I think it's going to snowball into a monster.
Well, we all know the best Who's Number One was the first Who's Number One.
Nothing against Flow, but I would like to see. I would like to see it get really, really big, and ESPN have maybe semis and quarters as well. Have a 2-day thing on ESPN. I think it would be huge. I realize that it's right when there's some college stuff, football going on, but
well, if we stopped poaching everybody from the top couple of teams, if you stop poaching everybody from the portal, then maybe you would have 8 teams that would make a quarterfinal round pretty interesting. But at this point, we're lucky if we get 2 great semifinal duels as opposed to just a single good semifinal.
Well, I'm not too much concerned with that for a number of reasons. I'm not too much concerned with competitiveness.
Really?
I'm not, and here's why. Again, with Penn State, with Penn State out, number one, there's no far and away like next topic.
That's why I think it's great that Penn State's not going to be there. I think it makes the event more interesting.
Number two, this is early. Lineups aren't settled. Kids aren't really 100% optimized. They might not be in tip-top shape. Some guys might be just coming back from U23 Worlds. And not even, they could be dinged up. They could be not in folk style condition. They could need a couple weeks off. And they're not in mid-season form yet. They're in early season form. So I think it's going to be electric. I think there's going to be upsets. I think there's enough parity there that matchups are going to be really interesting, and you could see some unexpected stuff.
Fair enough. Great points. Two questions for you. It's that I don't know. One, does this count towards the red shirt, the 5 or whatever it is, and is it considered a single event, or is each duel considered something that goes towards that 5. So I don't think he's going to, but let's assume D is going to end up redshirting. If he wrestles 4 duels here, does that count as one event, or does it count as
one? It counts
Okay,
as
so,
one.
so so he could wrestle 4 matches, but only have it count 1 against because it's a tournament format.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's interesting. You could see, you're right. You could see very different lineups then, depending upon how this plays out with what people are doing. It's also a good test for the coaches to see, where some of their kids that maybe on their fence are, that they're on the fence with redshirting or not. But that's interesting. So even though it's a 2-day event and multiple duels, it only counts as 1. And then, if D did it, then he could wrestle 4 more duels in theory.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Another interesting angle is different conferences have different travel rules. Like Big Ten, I think you can only travel with 14 or something like that. Where other conferences can travel with more. And because you remember that one time? Remember that one time Penn State traveled west and they went to 2 duels and they did it. They did a duel with somebody, and then 2 days later they did a duel with Arizona State, and one of their starters got hurt in the first duel. And then I think one of their guys had a skin infection. Anyway, when they wrestled Arizona State, they didn't have a guy because they only brought whatever. Not that that's gonna swing a duel, but it's interesting.
No, that's a great point. Is this a sanctioned NCAA thing? That was my other question. Is this something that is on for the All-Star matches that doesn't count against your record? Is this that type of thing, or is this you go, it counts for seeding later on at the national tournament? If you lost to somebody in this event, is that taken into consideration, or is it considered more of an exhibition thing?
What is Doug Jacobs talking about? Talking out his ass. Doug Jacobs, you're talking out your ass. Projecting the top 16 teams in the country in November. Who's doing that? Who's projecting the top 16 teams in the country in November? Mouth breather. What they will do.
Why do it in November when you can do it in March after NCAA's for the following
year?
What
they will do is, yeah, exactly. What they will do is probably issue, they could issue, and they used to do it with the old national duels, issue a waiver where it doesn't count as a date, or they could do something like that. They do it, I'm pretty sure they do it with the All-Star Classic. There's a waiver involved there. There used to be waivers involved with the old national duels. So yeah, there is stuff like that in play.
So that's still to be determined. They're kind of still figuring, kind of feeling their way through what the rules of the event or whatever are going to be.
There might have been something in the language in the press release that alluded to something like that, but I don't recall.
Interesting. Yeah. All right, boys. Well, thanks for having me on. Good stuff. Love debating.
Thank you as always for Joe.
Good stuff.
For joining.
All right, boys. Talk.
All right, brother.
Gotta love Baschamania. True wrestling brain. All right, Willie. Do you want to keep talking national duels, or because you had a few other points like the lottery balls? I don't know if people really know that yet. If you want to talk about that.
Yeah. So, initially, I thought we were going to select at-larges based on rosters. But I think what they're doing now is, I know what they're doing now is, they're selecting. So they were going to take 12 teams, and 4 were going to get in via at-larges or wild cards, but based on lineups. But now what they're doing is they sent the offer to 12. 11 came back and confirmed. Penn State did not. So now 5 teams will come out of the lottery, and it is a legitimate. We are putting ping pong balls in a tumbler and selecting 5 ping pong balls. But you get more ping pong balls based on what you placed. So, like Purdue took 12th, they will get 12 ping pong balls, and they will pick 5 out.
I like
And
it.
that's how the
I
final five teams
I
will.
wouldn't hate if it was based on projected lineups, but I mean, it is also happening like what next week, right?
Yeah, I believe Thursday.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be on Flow. 'Cause somebody asked if it could be on Bash in the Brain. We would have loved to have it.
Well, they pulled the plug on me. They asked me to do it, and I said yes. And then I talked to them 2 days later, and they said, "Yeah, Flo's gonna do it." So that was a bummer. Yeah, I guess.
All right. Is that it? That was only an hour and 10 minutes of national duels. I feel like you could do another hour. Do you want to talk about a couple other topics? We need to do like Monday, Tuesday, a full U.S. Open preview.
We need to do full U.S. Open shows. I got to do a big board show, and I also want to do a show on. Definitely want to do a show on cadet trials. Solo shows outside. Bash in the Brain, but I don't know. What else is going on? I mean, there's a couple coaching stuff going on. There has been some portal development since we did our last show. Lackland went to, I think since our last show, Lackland went to Michigan. Hunter Mason went to Virginia Tech. Spencer Moore went to Illinois, which was a surprise. I was told he was going to Presbyterian, but that's a great addition for Illinois, who has a lot coming back.
I think he was going to Presbyterian. I think some of these times it's like the guy, I mean, he told the UNC coaches, my wife's a Presbyterian, I want to go be with her. And then my belief is something happened at the 11th hour, very similar to Ethan Miller, was pretty much dead set on Iowa State. And they asked him for a visit to Virginia Tech last minute, and he took it, and he fell in love. That happens.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what's an interesting situation is at Ohio State, and I really don't fully understand it. I mean, I actually talked to the coaches, or one coach, and I mean, I won't say what he told me, but I don't fully understand it. Now, they get Chittum, right? So when they got Chittum, when Chittum was announced, I texted them, I said, is Cannon going 49? And he said, no. Which caught me a little bit by surprise because I figured Cannon, who wrestled off last year at 41, could make 49 and Chittum could slide in at 57. Easy peasy. And we're done. But I guess the word is Chittum wants to take a red shirt. But then if Cannon stays at 57, then what do they do with Chittum and Cannon that year? Number one. Number two, who wrestles 49? I don't know. Can they get Maddox Shaw down there? I mean, I know they can, but will they? I don't know. I don't know. It's there's some questions for me with Ohio State's lineup.
Yeah, no, their lineup definitely TBD, I think.
Tyler Wells went in the portal. Tyler Wells had a really good couple years. He started as a true freshman for Minnesota. Had a lot of wins. Did some good damage at the NCAA tournament as a freshman. Another really solid season as a sophomore, true sophomore. But he went in the portal, and the word, all the Minnesota fans, when I tweeted that Tyler Wells was in the portal, all the Minnesota fans said he's going to go to St. Cloud State. He's going to go to St. Cloud State. And, he's a really interesting cat because his skills and his results and his talent were undeniable when he was in high school. He was undeniably good. And, he was undeniably a top, like, let's say 150 big boarder. But I didn't put him on. And here's why I didn't put him on. Is because everybody in the state of Minnesota, because I was asking top coaches, and I was like, dude, Tyler Wells, he's too good to not be committed. Why is he not committed? What is he doing? What's the story with this Tyler Wells guy? And every single one of them told me, he's just not into it. He wants to like start a business. And then at the 11th hour, So like last year when like I felt like I really had egg on my face because last year when he's having this great season and he qualifies for NCAAs and you're doing like by the numbers stuff and Tyler Wells big board not ranked. I felt stupid because he definitely should have been, but I was told he was not wrestling in college, right? So, interesting situation. I think he's maybe had enough wrestling, or he's going to go to St. Cloud State and wrestle at a lower division and just have fun with it and be less stressful or whatever. Whatever though, I wish him the best. He's certainly really good. Dylan Fishback portal, TJ Stewart portal, still out there.
TJ, by the way, a lot of people have speculated or thought that TJ's staying home. It does not sound like he's staying home. It's staying home, like staying where he's at by home. Yeah, he's not. He's headed somewhere. I'm told that announcement will be made public soon, but he's definitely not staying put.
Fishback on the move. He would be, immediately. He's an Ohio kid, so a lot of people speculating that it could be Ohio State, but
it's crazy how many kids get in the portal and instantly there's chatter instantly, and it's crazy because it's like I even put out yesterday. Peyton Keller went in the portal, and he DM'd me right away. He's like, "Hey, can you take that down? I haven't talked to the team yet. I really want to go tell them." And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." Like, I don't want to put it out there before they've had the opportunity to do that. So I took it down until he went and told this team. But it's crazy because as soon as I put out the graphic that Peyton Keller's hitting the portal, I have people that are like, "Oh, Oklahoma." And I'm like, "What?" "I'm hearing it's Norman." And I'm like, I don't know if that's factual or if that's whatever, but it's crazy how many times somebody hits the portal and you get a text, and I'm sure you get the same ones, like instantly, "Oh, he's going there." And I'm like, okay, I have no, we'll wait and see what he says. But it's crazy how many, especially like this later in April, kids are entering the portal, and I'm hearing that there's, so quickly, like a destination already.
Yeah, I don't, that's one everybody that's watching probably knows. I'm pretty consistent on this, and I hate seeing I hate seeing guys from Little Rock, guys from Ohio. Clarion has a guy sometimes. I hate seeing studs from small programs, All-Americans from small programs moving on and going to other schools. So I hated to see Keller in the portal. But the word was that he was academically ineligible. If you look at his season, he wrestled in the beginning, and then he just miraculously stopped. And people were told.
I thought he got injured midseason. Didn't he have a shoulder injury?
People were told that he was academically ineligible. Like people like in wrestling media. Not me. I was never told that. I was never told that by the staff. Other wrestling media people that have told me that they were told he was academically ineligible. Now, if that's true or not, I don't know. But it is interesting because, maybe he got eligible this past semester. But if he didn't, then maybe we don't see him first semester. And right, maybe we might not. If he had academic issues, and he still has academic issues, it might take him a semester to get right academically.
We did have a commitment today.
Who committed today?
Caleb.
Oh, Caleb Rachi. Yeah, I talked to him. Well, I didn't talk to him. I talked to his father the other night. We're not like super duper tight, but we're pretty tight. We're kind of buds. We've been buds for a while. Like, I think I said it on a show before. The night at NCAAs when Drake made finals 2 years ago, not this year, Kansas City, I believe it was. Drake made finals. Uh, I had a. It was pretty cool because I just walked across the street, and it was Mr. Irachi and and Sam Ayala, Mr. Ayala, and we had a beer together, and it was kind of cool because it was like it was just us three, and we're kind of celebrating, and there was I don't know why, but there was like nobody. The bar wasn't packed or anything, and it was nice. We just sat there, decompressed, kind of congratulated Sam, and yeah. So I called Kurt and I said, "Hey, I'm just checking in. Who do you like? Who do you not like?" And he's like, "Man, we visited Nebraska, we visited Minnesota, both great staffs, both really quality, like good culture, good people, and we have a visit. We have to visit UNI yet this weekend, which I think it was like 2 days ago. I talked to him, and yeah, they must have hit a home run, Schwab and UNI, and he has a lot of friends on the team. Caleb has a lot of friends on the team, so I'm hoping for a good year out of Caleb.
I did see two notes. One is, speaking of Oklahoma Norman, John Wiley, who just won Pan Am's at Fort Tech Falls. Didn't have the best collegiate season, but he now hit the portal as well.
Yeah, he's a weird one. Really, really talented guy. And early on in his high school career, I had him way, way up there. He won a Fargo title at the cadet level, and then he continued on. Like, he's always been really great in freestyle. I don't know why it really hasn't come together for him yet in folk style, but he's an interesting guy. So now that means Oklahoma had McDougal leave and Wiley, but that staff has done pretty good in recruiting and pretty good through the portal. They should be all right, but it'd be interesting where the Wiley and McDougal go. I saw a crazy stat the other day, and this doesn't apply to wrestling. I don't really even know why I'm bringing it up, but football. No, it was basketball. D1 basketball player. Was it basketball or football? I don't know what it was, but the number of D1 guys that went in the portal, like a majority of them, like 60, 70%, never went D1 again. When they portaled, they went like D2, D3.
Really?
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Benny Worms in the chat. Fellers is in the chat saying rumor mill hour with Brain Dead. Benny Worms says, have the Rainey twins announced yet? No, they have not. And Willie has, I don't know if he's going to save it for when he does a big board show, but your tweet about the big board stats and the committed early was crazy.
Yeah, I used to be a football kind of junkie with football recruiting. I just don't have the time anymore, but like once every couple months I check in on it. And I looked, I don't know why. Last night I was super bored, and I looked at the Rivals 250 for next year, for 2026. And like, maybe I'm mistaken, but if memory serves me right, a few years ago, the 2026s were almost all spoken for. And now they're not. Wrestling, in my big board, the top 50, 36, I believe. 36 of the 50 are already committed. In football, 9. 9 of the 50 are committed. Wrestling, there's more top 50 wrestling commits at this time than there is football. I found that crazy. That used to be inverse for sure. And I wonder now with if the change and people are committing less because of NIL in football. Like they're like, hold up, maybe I don't commit right now. Maybe I get a better, because it used to be you can only offer us full.
Yeah.
The best thing I can get is a full. So I could get a full from Alabama, and I could get a full from Colorado State. I'm going to go to Alabama. But now maybe it's like, well, maybe I'm not committing because Alabama's offering me a scholarship and $1 million, and I don't know. Florida's telling me to wait because they might offer me a full and $2 million. I'm just speculating, but
Yeah.
something happened. Something happened.
Do you see a trend of wrestlers committing earlier than they used to now in the NIL portal or the NIL era?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Like, do you think football's just lagging behind, or is wrestling speeding up?
I don't know. Heck, I didn't even know that this was the trend in football until last night. Because as far as I remember, the next season had a ton of commitments for football. And now they do not. They're not even 50% of the top 50 are committed for next year, which is crazy to me. I'm not an expert in football recruiting anymore. I don't pay attention to it that much. But the only variable that I can think of is NIL.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Portal, I think that just about covers. We did have another commitment, high school commitment. Ohio State got a good one, 2-time world champ.
Jason Bryant, that's a great insight. There's less, Jason Bryant saying there's less prospects committed now because they're filling their roster instead of getting the junior in high school.
Yeah.
They're getting the cornerback from Ohio State to hit the portal.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
But hold on, though. There's still got to be a equilibrium. There's still only X number of players in the universe.
But I think what's happening is the top programs are going after the portal more than they are recruits, so they're waiting more because they might get a year out of a player versus recruiting early. Totally get that.
Well,
look at Colorado last year.
Also, maybe it's a temporary thing because there's this glut of kids that are still on 6 or 7 years of COVID.
Yeah, COVID's such an anomaly.
Yeah.
Yeah, Taylor, sorry. Styles is in the portal. I thought we hit that in the last show, but maybe that actually just happened 2 days ago, didn't it?
Yeah, Styles in the portal. There's a lot of chatter that it's going to be Ohio State. I spaced it a couple minutes ago when I was talking about Ohio State and being a little confusing, and they're getting Chittum, or they got Chittum, and Cannon staying at 57. Now throw the Styles rumors in there. I mean, a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of people in your DMs and stuff, message boards will say Styles to Ohio State is happening. So, interesting group there at 49-57 for Ohio State.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. What if you're in the show doc, you have this note here. Sometimes I don't know if your notes are public or not, talking about new graduates and coaching salaries.
Oh yeah. New graduates and coaching salaries. So new graduates, like they're graduating, wrestlers are graduating, and then they're saying, Willie, what jobs are open? And then I'm saying this, and that. And like a lot of them are like, their first question's like, well, I shouldn't say it. They all want to go to a power program, and they all want to get paid $300,000. And
NIL era.
They're just delusional.
NIL era.
Like, bro, you're not going. Your first job out of college is not going to be for $200,000 at a Big Ten program. That's not happening. You're going to have to make $60,000 at George Mason if you want to get into coaching. I don't know how to break it to you, but there's a lot of there's a lot of talented stars that have graduated and are thinking they want to get into coaching, and they don't know the realities of college coaching, like job availability, school availability, and projected salary. Because yeah, and it's complicated by the fact that for the last decade, schools were, be a training partner, be a RTC, will pay $100,000. So guys were like, all right, I'm going to train for the RTC and I'm going to wrestle at the US Open and I'm going to make $100,000, or I'm going to make $70,000 and get a free apartment. And then, you know, Edinburgh comes calling and says, hey, do you want an assistant job? I'm looking for an assistant for $50,000. And they're like, what? Hell no. And you know what's happening now? That RTC money's drying up and they're using it for NIL. So now kids are going back to, okay, I want to be an assistant coach, but they don't know that they don't know the realities of it.
Yeah. Did see coaching news wise, Purdue is keeping Matt Ramos. They're bringing him on staff. That'll be good for Purdue to keep him there. Rocky was talking about it on the show when he was on not too long ago, that Perry was on staff or coming on staff in the next month or so. I see you have a note on that here too.
Yeah, Chris Perry will be on staff. Yeah, he'll be on staff. I mean, he got paid a year severance from Oklahoma State, so that's up sometime soon, and he'll go on staff at Iowa State.
Then I did see some, it seemed like message board screenshots that sounds like Parker may go with Roper, which would quiet any talk of him filling the newly vacant coaching role at UNI.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting that, like, it was a few weeks before Roper got announced to Oklahoma State, probably 3 weeks before that. It was circulated. Everybody was saying Keckeisen and Roper are going to Oklahoma State. Yeah. So Roper gets announced. No word on Keckeisen, but now it's starting to get even more traction that Parker's going.
Jason Bryant. Yep. Vinny Barber to Lynchburg. That was recently announced a few weeks ago.
Vinny Barber is a piece of work, boy. Piece of work. I would, because we worked together at Flow. I would show up at my house and he'd be on my couch. Like, I shouldn't say too much. He's a professional.
Yeah, Taylor, Zahid, Parker, and Plott all at the Cowboy RTC is nothing anybody really thought would happen. Kind of crazy to think about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think we talked about other coaching stuff. Illinois is looking for an upper weight guy. Penn is going to go through a change. Lehigh is going to hire somebody. George Mason's looking for a spot. App State's looking for a spot. Central Michigan's has an opening. What else? What are we forgetting? Anything else? Well, I mean, so Oklahoma State, they moved Pearsall. Is that right? They moved Pearsall to Gilman's position and opened up like a D-ops kind of guy?
Yeah, I saw that. I saw they opened up a new position. It was like director of ops for wrestling or wrestling admin, something along those lines.
Yeah.
So. All right, that is the portal. That is transfer updates. That is the delusion with recent graduates.
Let's end the show with Meat Hour. What are you doing for Easter.
I drove to Wegmans this morning with Freddie, and we went to get a prime rib roast. My brother and his family are coming over. Let's do a prime rib. They said, we don't have any USDA. We just have Angus, which is like you're talking from 17 a pound to 32 a pound. All right, let me go to the other Wegmans. I go to another Wegmans. Go to the butcher out in Pittsford.
You have 2 Wegmans next to you?
No, I went to the other side of Rochester. I went to Pittsford Wegmans. Higher
That's
end.
what I'm saying. You have 2 Wegmans in driving distance?
Oh, we have like probably 20.
Really?
This is where Wegmans started. So there's a Wegmans in Chili, in Gates, in Spencerport, in Greece, in Pittsford, in Henrietta. There's Wegmans every 5 minutes you drive here.
That's heaven.
Yeah.
I guess you only really need one. But.
So I drove to the other one, and I said, I want to do a rib roast tomorrow. You got any back there? Everybody's loaded with ham. And they said, no, but I do have Angus. I said, you too? I said, all right, give me an Angus. So we got a nice rib roast. I mean, if you want to come over for Easter, we'll just cut an inch off and cook it like a ribeye for you, and then we'll smoke it and reverse sear it for everybody else. But
no, I want ribeye. I want prime.
Yeah, we're gonna do a rib roast tomorrow. So early church, 7:30 in the morning. Get home, and then I'll season it, let it sit at room temperature, sear it, and then I was gonna reverse sear, but I'll probably cook it at 450 for 20 minutes, give it a nice crust, and then smoke it at like 225 for a couple hours, and have a nice brunch.
Doesn't the crust doesn't prevent the smoke from penetrating?
So when I do like a rib roast, I'll turn the Traeger to 450 or 500 for the first like half hour, and it gives the nice kind of bark to it, nice crisp, and then you cook it. I like to reverse sear it. Like a tenderloin roast, I'll smoke until it hits 115, and then I'll sear it 45 to a minute aside on 600 degrees. But it gives it, for like a rib roast, it gives it a nice crisp, a nice T-bone snipe. Yeah, that sounds good too. I've got a nice, what is it, a chuck and a brisket blend from Snake River Farm. So we're going to go smoke some burgers.
That's right. I should start a site, not a restaurant. I'm going to start a podcast called Meat Scouts.
Hey, you know who wants to be our first guest on that? Yeah, Bashada Super Smoke is right. You know who wants to be our first guest on Meat Scouts? Fred Minnick.
Yes.
Shout out,
What
Fred.
me, you and Fred should do meats and bourbon show.
I hopped into, he premiered one of his videos recently, and I don't know, I know nothing about whiskey and bourbon. I can talk wine for 8 hours. Big wine collector, love wine, know a lot about wine, know nothing about bourbon and whiskey. I hopped on his live premiere and had so much fun just talking to him. He's the man.
All right. That is my rant on all sides of the national duels debate. And we wish you a Merry Easter. Merry Easter. Happy Easter. Bash, when are we running it back? Monday, Tuesday, U.S. Open show?
So I'm having Brandon Slay is coming on Monday midday to catch up with him, talk about some things he's about to be doing. And then I think we follow that up with a U.S. Open full show. Nittany Lion Wrestling Club finally entered their guys today, which is kind of interesting because, I don't know, Dake said yesterday, see you at the Open, with a picture of him like flexing in a singlet. So I said, Dake's at the Open. But now NLWC registers their guys and he's not in there. So I don't know, is that a null thing? Like, I'm going to go, but I'm not competing? So I don't know.
Yeah.
Lilladall, Bartlett, Messenbrink, the seniors competing.
Lilladall, Bartlett, Messenbrink.
57, 65, 74. And then Joe Seeley and the Marisolas are U20s. And Sam Beckett and Brock Wise competing as well.
Yeah, so juniors, Marisol is still juniors, yes.
Yeah.
That'll be good. That'll get, is 92 or 97?
Connor's at 92 and Cole's at 125.
Okay. Good. We needed guys we're a little light in the juniors in the upper weight.
And we're gonna talk about it. We'll do a whole U.S. Open show, but we were 100% wrong just because we weren't planning on going there. Yeah, I think the NLWC has more registrations coming as well. We weren't planning on going there, but when we were talking about 57 kilos and 61, no bar at the Open. He's thinking about maybe the World Team Trials, but no bar at the Open. 57 is very light, and we were saying maybe they're going to go to the World Team Trials. There's no World Team Trials for 57 and 61. So winner of the Open is going to
we messed
X.
that up. I remember we were talking about college, and then you switched gears and went U.S. Open, and my brain failed to function.
Same.
I didn't switch. My brain did not switch over to the freestyle scene, so I messed that up.
But it's all good. We're going to have a fun U.S. Open show, talk about the young guns. You know, you got Blaze and Forrest and these guys competing and seniors. It's going to be fun. So look for that Monday, Tuesday-ish. Slay will be on Monday. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to doing an Open preview show. Open's going to be pretty good.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We will see you next week.
Have a very happy Easter, a happy Resurrection
Easter.
Sunday.
Go Bills.
For all of who have been offended by Willie, he is going to go to church in the morning and repent.
Go Bills.
All right, that's the show. Go Bills.